that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
Well, here we are again. At the time I make this video, the 15th episode of season 17 has just aired, meaning it's been just over 3 months since it premiered in early 2025. With that, there's now only one episode remaining, which is the grand finale with the top 4 queens. Yet, what is the legacy that season 17 is leaving behind in the Drag Race fandom? And what are the best improvements that they've made from past seasons? Well, it's time to say goodbye to season 17. But before we start, so lately, I've been thinking about how much time we spend online and how important it is to actually own a little piece of it. Whether it's for your art, your work, your brand, or just a place to collect everything you're doing, having your own website changes the game. And that's why I'm happy to say that this video is sponsored by Squarespace, a great supporter of this channel. I've used Squarespace to build my own website, and the process genuinely surprised me with how straightforward it was. Their templates look clean and modern right off the gate. Editing them is honestly kind of fun. It's drag and drop and super visual. No coding, no weird backend setup, just you and your ideas coming to life. What's more is everything you need is built in, from custom domains and SEO tools to full-on e-commerce and payment. It's all there in one spot. You can even check your site traffic and sales with their analytics dashboard, which I love. It keeps things simple but smart. If you've been thinking about starting a site or even just centralizing everything you're already doing, now's a good time. You can start with a free trial by clicking the link in the description and getting an additional 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain, plus supporting my channel in the process. Now, let's begin. Season 17 started off on a very high note. The water-themed promo was excellent in tying in the concept that they had going on with the whole badunk dunk tank as the initial gag in the competition. There had been rumors as we were approaching the release of the promotional trailer that perhaps it would have something to do with being underwater. There was just so many hints out there. Even better news was how production actually did show an effort in putting the promos together, especially judging by all the behind the scenes footage. They had water straight up flowing in the background of their set, with queens standing on floor that had water on the surface too, along with being told ahead of time that whatever they decided to bring for the promo shoot, to be prepared for it to get wet. I love seeing visuals like this because it provides another layer of cuntiness to the whole photo shoot. What's more is they visually stand out aesthetically from a lot of the previous seasons. Although it's worth noting that Lana Jarre arguably had the best overall photo from the initial cast announcement. Overall though, everyone had done a really good job, and it succeeded at jumpstarting the excitement for the new season. Subsequently, it was pretty effective marketing, because this season's premiere once again broke the record for the highest ratings and viewership in over 7 years. This was previously broken by season 16 just last year, but season 17 ended up beating it by garnering 9% more views for the premiere episode this time around. I love starting out a video by saying that because regardless of whether it's the best season ever or the worst season ever, to know that the franchise is still going very strong, hence technically not yet reaching its peak in terms of sheer success, is very nice news to hear. It also means that we probably won't be seeing RuPaul's Drag Race leave MTV as the main network anytime soon. As a reminder, they now have 3 main seasons under their belt, with season 15, season 16, and season 17. Comparing these to their predecessors from VH1, whose last 3 seasons were season 12, season 13, and season 14, what difference do you notice between these sets? Do you like it when seasons are produced in VH1, or do you prefer MTV's new take on it? Comment below, because to me, it was clear just from the quality that we got from the entertainment portion of these editions from MTV that the switch to them was a much needed refresher that we desperately were needing, especially after that season 13-14 run. With that, the last competitive episodes of season 17 have aired, providing us with the 14 episodes that were filmed last summer, the next 2 being the Lollapalooza grand finale that were actually just filmed last month. Yet how will season 17 go on to be remembered? And what were some of the highlights that happened over the past 3 months? It goes without saying that one of the major changes that we got was the rebranding of Untucked. The last time it had undergone a major change in format was season 7, when they went from the Interior Illusions Lounge to just backstage. Arguably though, you could say that the last major rebrand was actually season 10, since even though it had been the same behind the scenes format as seasons 7, 8, and 9, it was the first time that the format style had been used for an Untucked season that would actually be airing in the main television network, and not solely on YouTube. So after season 10, they never really changed anything again. That's where season 17 comes in. What they did was not just unexpected, since for a long time, it seemed like an open secret that Untucked was no longer a requirement for the viewing experience, because oftentimes nothing that entertaining would happen. And if it did, it tended to be very few and far between that would end up being highlighted in the main season anyway. The new Untucked set offered the queens a lot of space, even encouraging them to walk around, along with a snack bar filled with so many delicious goodies. They also gave the queens their own communal iPhone that they could use to film videos and take pictures hanging out with each other. What this allowed was for there to be a much more relaxed state. It was truly a fun environment for them to be around, communicating very clearly through the screen. Maybe it's that same step up that would ultimately prompt a lot of them to be more dramatic. The queens, whether they realized it or not, were being really good at giving us backstage gossip moments that really was what a lot of people had been wanting from Untucked for so many years. There's been discussions online that what separates season 17 from previous editions is that this was sort of the first time that the contestants and the competition truly felt like a reality television series. You're probably wondering what exactly that even means. The best way to explain it is that part of what made these queens seem to have a different approach was that they didn't seem to care that much over how their behavior would be perceived by the fan base. There wasn't just one or two queens carrying the personality department. All of them seemed to be giving genuine reactions to things happening around them. While it's true that a good portion of the cast was on the younger side, meaning they were pretty unseasoned, reflecting in their performances for most of the challenges, it didn't seem like everyone was looking to the future, or how their run would ultimately dictate the opportunities that they got. Instead, they were there for the pure experience of it all, and allowing the excitement of having cameras in front of them boost the way they showcased their personalities to the audience. It seems in a way that there was a decent portion of time throughout the original season's airing that queens were filtering themselves like crazy out of fear of backlash from the fans. But queens now have realized that none of that really matters. Most of the time, even queens that get a bad reception end up managing to change people's mind in the years after the airing, or just become old news, because people are no longer as invested into hating them as they once were, as was the case for Plain Jane on season 16. They received a lot of backlash at the beginning of the airing of the season, versus to this day where she has a pretty solid fanbase of people that love her for being so chaotic and real with her opinions. In the case of season 17, the one that would most fit the quote villain of the season title would have to go to Arrietty. Arrietty is someone that I did not expect at all becoming a pretty despised queen by the RuPaul's Drag Race fandom. Now listen, obviously it goes without saying that you shouldn't be sending any hate towards Arrietty's socials, so let's just look at her run for what it was. And that's extremely chaotic. It was clear from the beginning that Arrietty wasn't afraid of clapping back at queens. But what started off as playful shade would end up escalating to more personal attacks that climax in the mirror message that she left behind for Onya Nurve. But how did things go so off the rails for her? Well, obviously, when it came to her strength, it very clearly was the sewing/design challenges, where she made outfits that without context, you would assume she got it from a designer. Something that was and still is very impressive. But aside from that, she tended to do really bad at every other challenge that was presented to her. What would end up accentuating the frustrations that fans had with her was the constant complaining about too many comedy challenges, when everyone knows that a big correlating theme to every season of RuPaul's Drag Race as a franchise is the fact that they always lean towards funny content. RuPaul wants to laugh. That's why charisma is among the 4 pillars of what it takes to become America's next drag superstar. All that being said, Arrietty's run is not the first run in RuPaul's Drag Race to be badly received by the fanbase. So the question is, if and when Arrietty gets invited to do All-Stars, would you be open to potentially seeing her redeem herself? Why or why not? In terms of dramatic moments, we had Arrietty who, after feeling betrayed by Jules in the roast challenge, decided to steal some jokes from Jules, to screw her over too. This resulted in one of the worst roast performances ever, while also reminding viewers that if you're gonna cheat on a test, you should at least copy your answers from someone that's actually gonna do well on it. In Arrietty's case, the jokes she stole from Jules were not even that funny. This whole episode was actually pretty confusing since Lexi Love was also upset about where Jules placed her for the order in which the queens would do the roast, but both of them convincing themselves to give up and accept that they would do bad instead of trying their best to mitigate it was a pretty difficult flaw to overlook from a competition standpoint. That being said, one of the more memorable lip sync face-offs in this season was Lydia B. Collins versus Arrietty. Something about having disco songs on Drag Race always results in the queens being able to let loose to the music. So when Lydia started to quite literally steal our attention because of how into it she was, it didn't take long before we were halfway through the lip sync and we all knew that we were witnessing her streak for what would go on on to be one of the more remembered lip sync performances from recent history. I mean, when you see Rupaul truly focus in on someone, that's when you know they have it in the bag. Regardless, nobody ends up going home from this, because while Lydia wins the lip sync, Arrietty ends up choosing the right lever for the badunkadunk tank and gets to stay. As the season continued, we started to see other elements that production had clearly listened to the feedback from fans. When season 16 aired last year, the internet praised Law Roach for being a really great guest judge. It isn't all that often that someone who's invited to the judges panel makes such a good impression that people immediately are asking them to come back. Law Roach has a background in the Hollywood world, having worked with A-list stars, most notably being Zendaya's personal stylist, along with having been a main judge on HBO's Legendary, judging people that vote, leading to some really funny moments in terms of the way that he delivered his feedback to the contestants. That's why when people said last year that Law would be a perfect choice for a rotating judge on the season, sort of like what's been happening with T.S. Madison, Ross Matthews, and Carson Kressley, I was pretty surprised to see that for once, production actually listened to the demands of the fans. Law already proved this season the worth of his presence in the judges panel, having revitalized its energy. You could really notice it for a lot of the episodes that she was invited to judge on. So I'm hoping they did end up offering him a new contract for future seasons of the series. It's actually pretty important to have that brutally honest judge that just says things out of pocket. For a while, Michelle Visage occupied that role of the quote-unquote villainous type of judge, but we see as we get to the double-digit seasons that she changes her approach to judging, being a lot more focused in constructive criticism rather than saying critiques that would be cutting and good for television. Yet, speaking of critiques, one of the challenges that had close to no bad showcases from the queens was the season 17 episode 8 Ruical, where they paid tribute to 3 classic musicals: The Wizard of Oz, Wicked, and The Wiz. None of the queens truly did bad this episode. Even Acacia Forgot, that went on to get eliminated, largely was critiqued because she didn't push her role to the distance that it was meant to go. Yet even then, she didn't do all that bad. In fact, there wasn't really a point where you found yourself being bored by what was happening on screen. The songs were catchy, the outfits were cute, the queens were into it, and on top of it all, it came just a couple months after Wicked Part 2 had hit theaters, so it was super relevant to what was happening in pop culture. Rusicals are one of the episodes that fans look forward to the most, and it's fortunate to see that production clearly were looking ahead for what would be the most exciting topic to cover, especially in terms of public relevancy beyond just the Drag Race world. It reflected in contestants like Lana Jarre, who while very young, had been a longtime fan of the series, along with being the drag daughter of Lux Noir London, which provided her with a good boost in her career. Lana Jarre came across as a super charming individual. Yes, let's be honest, she wasn't really all that impressive when it came to the challenges, but even though she kept having to lip sync for her life, to a degree that at one point it was clear that she was most likely not going to be winning the crown, she never really seemed to get in her head about it. I mean, there was that one episode of Untucked where she was pretty upset about the reality of her run, but she quickly got over it. Every time we saw her on screen, up until the moment she got eliminated, she consistently was energetic, happy, and excited for whatever she was going to be doing next. Lana, at her core, does represent the younger superfans of the series. Maybe she didn't have a groundbreaking run, but she left a good impression and ended it on a very high note with the best lip sync she delivered in the season, being a very fun trajectory to watch unfold. Speaking of trajectories though, in many aspects, the romance between Corey King and Lydia B. Collins was probably the most popular storyline of the season. While the show only brushed the surface of their relationship, those that were tuning in to their online presence as the season aired could see just how strong of a bond they had managed to make even almost a year since they originally filmed their episodes. Lesbians all around the globe were uniting to join their fandom. That's why many consider the lip sync between Lydia and Corey as one of the biggest climaxes of the season, where they ended up kissing each other in what was their first official sloppy kiss ever since they first met each other. While Lydia won the lip sync, going on to win the roast challenge, she would still end up going home after having a malfunction with trying to cut herself out of the dress, resulting in Lana Jarre winning the lip sync instead. While most of the viewers moved on from this pretty quick, I do wonder if Lydia hadn't had a malfunction with the scissors and won her lip sync against Lana, just how far she would have ended up going. Clearly, she had that new storyline going for her where she desperately wanted to make Corey King's elimination have more meaning, by Lydia going on to make it to the end of the competition. Plus, she did get that one challenge win under her belt. So who knows, maybe in an alternate reality, Lydia goes on to take Jewel Sparkle's spot in the top 4. But that's just fun speculation from my part. If anything though, sometimes there is a truth to the saying, everything happens for a reason. An example of that being Suzie Tude. Suzie Tude had a pretty unique trajectory in the competition. When it came to the challenges, she was super versatile, consistently doing well, with a track record that had 2 wins, several high placements, some safe placements, and the only time she landed in the bottom 2 was in the final 5 episode, where she ended up being eliminated. Some said halfway through the competition that Suzie Tude was like the new version of the Jinx Monsoon edit from season 5, where she was an underdog with most of the other competitors shutting her down, even though she was doing very well every single week. Yet I never really felt their storylines were similar at all. Suzie Tude never doubted herself and the way she could apply her talents to different challenges, and when queens would try to comfort her by invalidating her talents, she oftentimes would respond by sort of laughing in their face, by saying that their opinion doesn't really matter, since at the end of the day, Rupaul and the judges were clearly living for what she was serving them. Suzie also had a pretty great way of not just brushing off what other people were saying about her, but also going on to hype herself up by saying that she was pretty much the biggest threat to everyone, despite Onya being 2 wins ahead of her. Even in her exit line, Suzie says that whoever ends up winning will be tainted because she's the one that should have gotten the crown. Honestly, it was one of the more memorable exits of the season. Without a doubt, regardless of her going home in 5th place, I was really happy with the way things turned out for her, given that for the Lollapalooza, nobody saw her as a real contender. But she'd go on to make it to the final 2 lip sync against Corey King, and winning after Corey had terrorized her for months with the Frankenstein-like creation of Corey Tude. Now, Corey wasn't the only one that Suzie would get some heat from. The Lexi Love versus Suzie Tude storyline was probably the most bewildering of season 17. What started off as a friendly rivalry quickly became clear it was actually just the one-sided obsession where Lexi viewed Suzie as her biggest competition, despite Onya Nurve and Sam Starr both being bigger frontrunners overall. It then expanded to Lexi saying that Suzie Tude was actually the representation of Lexi Love if Lexi hadn't ended up having an addiction to substance abuse. While the premise of the argument makes somewhat sense, the fact that Suzie managed to remain in the forefront of Lexi's mind from the beginning to the end of the competition is something that I think will take years of post-season rewatches to truly understand, given that Lexi actually had a high degree of talent herself. She served some good runways and clearly was really good when it came to being funny. I mean, this is the queen that RuPaul put in the top 3 for Snatch Game, literally for being so bad at her role that Ru sort of found it funny to see the way she was struggling. Regardless, Lexi ends up making the top 4 alongside Sam Starr, Onya Nurve, and Jewel Sparkle. When the season first started off with the talent shows, Onya Nurve's first impression here was that she would sort of end up being someone that went home halfway through the season. I mean, don't get me wrong, Onya did do well enough in her talent show, but it wasn't something that necessarily made her stand out as someone that was a big threat in the competition. But boy, was I and most viewers dead wrong. Onya was not only someone that was absolutely destroying the girls in every single challenge, but she also had a personality about her that made it hard for you not to like her. I mean this especially when it came to calling out other queens on biases that they had towards girls that just happened to be doing better than them. It was like seeing a queen that was not only self-aware, but clearly had confidence in her place in the competition, since she ultimately would not be going anywhere anytime soon. You could even argue that based on her track record that amounted in a total of 4 challenge wins, could have easily been 5 challenge wins, allowing her to break the record for the most amount of wins a queen has had on a main season of RuPaul's Drag Race. All that being said, as the episodes for season 17 kept going, the second half of the season was a lot weaker than the first. Without a doubt, as more queens kept leaving and there was less and less contestants left, things also got less and less entertaining. While still enjoyable to watch, there wasn't a lot of tension left. I mean, you could tell it was a race between Onya Nurve, Sam Starr, and Suzie Tude, and that everyone else was just trying to catch up or trying to make the finale. It was unexpected to see Suzie's last-minute elimination, but even then, in terms of track record, she was still falling behind 2 other queens, so it wasn't like it was her crown to lose. So then, based on everything we've seen, do you think that season 17 will be able to bring home the Emmy? As we know, season 14 was the first double-digit season to lose the Emmy for Best Outstanding Reality TV Competition. Season 17 would go on to bring it back, but season 16, despite being the most well-received edition in years, ended up losing it to The Traitor Season 2. Therefore, season 17's biggest competition going into the Emmys will be The Traitor Season 3, that just had a pretty good reception. And Bob the Drag Queen queen, the winner of season 8, was among the main characters of the cast. So at least regardless of whether season 17 wins or the traitors win, there will still be something that the Drag Race fandom can celebrate. Now that the finale is about to air, many fans felt that there was a lot of conflict among the contestants this year, so it would make sense for us to get a reunion. Sadly though, we didn't end up getting one because we had a Lollapalooza instead. Plus, with DragCon Los Angeles being cancelled this year, it means we won't be getting a Bring Back My Girls reunion. That proved to be really good for season 16, resulting in the queens not just arguing with each other, but being super drunk while doing it. It's sort of disappointing in a way. I'm not sure exactly who's in charge of making decisions like this for the series, but I hope that they aim next year to try to make more of an effort in making key events happen. If not for us, then for the experience of the queens themselves, who I'm sure would have loved doing DragCon, even if they had moved it to New York City, given that Los Angeles is still recovering from the wildfires. Moving on, when it comes to the pit stop, Monet X Change was chosen to host season 17. Yet there wasn't that much noise about it as we got from previous editions of the pit stop. Some of the guests were more entertaining than others, but there wasn't really a lot of episodes where you could see people react online for how funny it was. It made me wonder why this was the case. Was it that the fans wanted a different host, or were people not as impressed for the lineup of guests? All that remains clear is that there is still a demand out there for pit stop coverage, and since All Stars 10 is the next in line, who do we hope to see get the hosting gig? Should it be someone that's done it before, or should they really go for an out of left field choice and have Thorgy Thor host it? Watch this video I made on the pit stop linked below if you want to know some fun facts about its data over the years. Back to talking about season 17 though, while the grand finale hasn't aired yet, we've seen from the previews that it will once again be filmed in a studio like they did with season 16. The reason this happened last year was presumably because the Hollywood actor strike happened, so production, being worried that the strike would carry on to the reality TV industry, invited all the queens back to the set just 2 months after they had finished filming the season, so that they could film the Lollapalooza and the grand finale ahead of time. It was assumed that since season 17's filming wasn't impacted by any looming strikes, that we would be going back to the grand finales being held in a live theater, with a big live audience, especially since this had been the norm all the way back from season 4 to season 15. Additionally, the first 14 episodes of season 17 were filmed last summer, but the last 2 remaining episodes were filmed just a couple weeks ago. So the queens actually got to see their episodes air and the public reception too. So it was a bit of a shock that they decided to film it privately as opposed to in a live theater. But why did they do this? Some have speculated it was to minimize the amount of spoilers that leaked from the audience members, but that makes no sense since spoilers have ended up leaking regardless of where they filmed it. Instead, the most plausible reason would be that production just realized it was a lot easier to film the grand finale in a private studio than it was to organize a live event at a theater. Which makes sense on paper, but the opulence that was felt by this being traditionally done with a huge live audience present, that was especially communicated in the faces of the queens on stage. It is, after all, an amalgamation of their whole journey since they originally filmed their season to seeing a giant crowd cheering for them. So hopefully next year we get to see this return. Looking at the top 4 for the season, at the time I make this video, the queens that could still win the crown is between Sam Starr, Onya Nurve, Lexi Love, and Jewel Sparkles. While each one of these queens has had an excellent showing in both challenges and runways for the 14 episodes they competed in, the one that seems the least likely to win is Jewel Sparkle. In fact, the fan favorite of the top 4 is Onya Nurve, that really got a lot of people on her side with every week that went by. In regards to Sam Starr, even if she doesn't win, she would make an excellent runner-up. With 3 challenge wins under her belt, she's the closest to catching up to Onya Nurve's track record. Then of course we have Lexi Love, and now that Suzie Tude is out of her way, she no longer has her inner saboteur, aka Suzie, haunting her everywhere she goes. So then, who would you see winning the crown? And whose team are you in? What I think next season would benefit from would be to create a cast of queens that are more on the older side. It doesn't even need to be older in age, but at least have a good amount of experience as a drag queen to the point that they're pretty versatile in all areas of the competition. This season, you could feel the freshness in most of the cast, and to be fair, it would be nice to be able to platform drag queens that have actually been in the community and not entirely influenced by Rupaul's Drag Race when it comes to their aesthetics. I have a question for you guys though. Since season 16 is still considered by by many the best double-digit season. What are your thoughts on this? Did you enjoy season 16 or season 17 better? What are the main differences you noticed between them? And who will most likely return to All-Stars from each cast? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again to Squarespace for supporting the channel. Click the link in the description to make your first website and earn 10% off your first order. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Sari Tish, Natasha De Leon, Las Potitas, Cool Gal Nan, and Jet Sam Adam. And in the Green Squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch, But a Keek, Jack Beck, Bashir with the Good Beard, Galeria Gomez, Sarah G, Boiled Peanut, Max Whale, Olivia Moore, Dea, and Scarlet Rose. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please comment below and like the video to help me out with the algorithm, and check out some of my other videos that you haven't seen, because most of the time, even that one video that doesn't seem like it piques your interest will end up surprising you and give you some time to relax. I'll see you guys next time.